A long time ago, in a land far away, there existed a widow and her only son Jack, who were extremely poor. Day in and day out, their sole source of sustenance was the milk from their cow, which they brought to the market and sold. But then one morning, the cow suddenly stopped giving milk, and they were at a loss for what to do. Jack tried to comfort his worried mother by saying he would find work somewhere, but she remained sad as he had been unsuccessful in the past. The mother eventually decided to sell the cow for money.
"Okay, mother,"
Jack said.
"I'll take it to the market and sell the cow. Then we'll figure out what to do next."
As he headed out to sell the cow, he spotted a very strange and peculiar man along the way. "Good morning, Jack," said the strange man.
"And good morning to you, sir,"
Jack responded.
"But may I ask, how do you know my name?"
"Your name is not important," said the man. "What's important is the choice you make now," Jack declared.
"I'm on my way to sell the cow."
The man responded, "Of course you are." After digging into his pocket, the man produced 5 peculiar beans. "See here, I've got 5 extraordinary beans that can bring you wealth beyond your imagination." Jack asked.
"What am I supposed to do with the beans?"
"Leave it in your garden," said the man. "It will grow towards the skies, and you can journey to another world."
"I wish to visit that place,"
said Jack with amazement. "Your wish can be granted," said the man, "but in return, you must give me your only cow." Jack hesitated for a long time, but eventually decided not to miss his only chance and traded his cow for the 5 beans. Jack's mother didn't see the cow as he approached home, assuming he had sold it, and asked him how much he made. The boy recounted his meeting with the peculiar man and their exchange for the 5 beans. The mother, who had no other source of income, was distressed and berated.
"How foolish to believe that."
She took the beans from him, hurled it over the garden, and scolded the boy to go to his room.
"And no supper for you tonight."
The boy strolled to his room disheartened and thought about whether he had made the right decision. Ultimately, he drifted off to sleep. As night fell, the garden became a hub of unusual activity, with the boy's beans sprouting into an enormous size, reaching towards the sky. What awaited the boy was only a matter of time. When the boy woke up at dawn, he noticed some unusual stalks coming into his bedroom window and went to examine them. From the window, he spotted an enormous stalk that grew into the sky and exclaimed,
"This is unbelievable."
The stalks had a pattern of steps that Jack could climb to reach the top, so he started climbing. Jack kept climbing for a long time and glanced down from the sky at the immense height. Despite the distance he had covered, he didn't want to stop.
"I can't stop now,"
he said.
"I must reach the top."
Finally, after an exhausting climb, Jack made it to the top of the stalks. The place he saw at first glance was quite peculiar, a world in itself, with dancing flowers, twisting streams, and insects chattering away in unfamiliar languages. In front of him was an endless stretch of road with a grand house in the distance, so he walked towards it. Following another exhausting journey, Jack found himself at the entrance of the massive house, with a colossal door looming in front of him. He began knocking on the door.
"Hello?"
But there was no one to answer the door. Jack kept knocking, but still there was no answer. After a strong knock, the enormous door finally opened, and a towering woman appeared, looking to see who it was, unaware that little Jack was standing before her.
"I am here,"
Jack exclaimed. The tall lady noticed him and asked,
"What do you need, young man?"
Jack was unsure how to reply, but his hunger got the best of him and he pleaded,
"Please, Can I have something to eat? I'm really hungry and tired.
Looking at him with pity, the tall woman invited him into her home. Leading him to the dining table, she disappeared into the kitchen, and shortly she emerged with food in various amounts and arranged it on the table. Not long after the boy began to dig in, the house shook from loud footsteps. The boy startled in fright and looked at the tall woman, and she exclaimed,
Oh, my old man must be awake.
The woman ordered the boy to take cover in the cupboard.
Quickly, hide.
3-5-4-fun.
An enormous ogre entered the kitchen.
I can smell you.
You and your imaginary smell again.
The woman said,
Take a seat and I will make you some food. Then off to sleep you go.
While the ogre ate, Jack spied on him through a slim opening in the cupboard. Having eaten heartily, the ogre became sleepy and intended to return to sleep. However, instead of going back the way he came, he went into another room. Jack opened the cupboard slowly and emerged. The woman whispered to the boy to go back home quietly to avoid being caught and eaten by the ogre, then disappeared. Upon almost leaving, Jack heard the sound of medals and boxes being opened from the room where the ogre entered, which made him interested, so he walked towards the room silently. Upon arriving at the room, he peered through a small opening in the door and was astonished to see large treasure chests and bags of all sizes filled with what appeared to be shiny gold coins. Jack was left in awe. It felt like he had stumbled upon a fortune. While watching through the door opening, he noticed the ogre counting his coins with a satisfied look before dozing off and falling asleep on his couch. Jack's heart raced with excitement as he took advantage of his gold fortune, sneaking into the room and grabbing as much gold as he could carry into a bag before quietly leaving. Jack left through the front door and sprinted towards the long distant road. Reaching the beanstalks that connected this peculiar world to his own, with the gold in the bag, he tossed it downwards and it fell on his garden. Jack then descended by climbing down the beanstalk. As soon as he reached the bottom, he grabbed the bag of gold and rushed to show his mother, who was stunned by the fortune they had found, and they lived contentedly for a while. After some time, their gold supply ran out, so Jack decided to return to the ogre's greenhouse to try and obtain more gold. Once more, he embarked on a journey, jumping onto the beanstalks and enduring another tiring expedition until he finally made it to the top. Although already a strange world, this time the scenery was even more unusual, with all sorts of bizarre creatures roaming about, from strange flying unicorns to enormous-sized frightening Fenris ready to pounce. Jack felt intimidated, but his strong urge to collect more gold led him to run impulsively towards the big greenhouse down the long stretch of road, even though the roaming creatures didn't seem to notice him. Upon returning to the greenhouse, he knocked, and was greeted by the same tall woman who appeared surprised and asked,
Weren't you the young boy who came before? When you were here last, my husband noticed some of his gold coins missing.
She said with doubt. Jack retorted,
That doesn't make any sense. But right now, I'm famished from traveling so much. Can you give me something to eat, please?
The woman couldn't resist serving him a meal at the table, and he began to eat, when suddenly, loud footsteps approached. It was the same ogre as before.
3-5-4-fun.
As the ogre arrived in the kitchen and announced his hunger, the woman told Jack to hide in the cupboard again before fixing the ogre's meal. Once he had eaten to his satisfaction, the ogre requested to his wife to bring him his enchanted goose, and she brought it to the table, then left the kitchen. The ogre ordered the goose to produce a golden egg, which it did with a honk. The satisfied ogre then became drowsy, started snoring, and fell asleep at the table. Quietly emerging from the cupboard, Jack watched over the kitchen scene before tiptoeing to the table where the goose lay. Quickly snatching the bird, he covered its beak with one hand and ran towards the door. Jack sprinted towards the beanstalk and the goose beak broke free, honking loudly. The ogre was awakened, realizing his goose was gone, and started yelling. Jack could hear the ogre screaming, but he was already climbing down the beanstalk. Jack finally returned home with an enchanted goose and showed it to his mother. She was proud of his bravery, and the goose laid a golden egg whenever they asked for it, bringing them great contentment. Despite everything, Jack decided to try his luck up the beanstalk one more time, hoping to obtain even greater wealth. So, one fine morning, he climbed the beanstalk and reached the top and found that the place this time was eerily quiet, with no creatures roaming about. Undeterred, he proceeded towards the grand house, determined to make it his last attempt. Upon his arrival at the house, he knew better than to encounter the woman. He made his way to an open kitchen window. Jack spotted the woman, and once she had left, he entered the house. This time, he chose to hide in the pantry instead of the cupboard, and patiently waited for the ogre to place his next prized possession on the table. Soon after, the ogre's footsteps echoed.
Fee, fi, fo, fum. I can smell you. I shall grind your bones for my bread.
The ogre searched for Jack in the cupboard, but couldn't find him.
Where are you?
The ogre's wife walked into the kitchen and suggested that the ogre's discomfort was due to his previous night's supper. She then made him breakfast and brought him his magical harp, which he ordered to play a beautiful tune. The ogre dozed off yet again, giving Jack the chance to grab the magical harp and run towards the door. As he did, the harp cried out. The ogre woke up from his sleep and saw that Jack had taken his magical harp. The ogre became furious and began pursuing Jack. The ogre was catching up to Jack as he tried to escape. Feeling defeated, he nearly dropped the magical harp, but noticed a companion running beside him. Jack recognized the unicorn from his second visit, and it produced an unfamiliar sound. Although Jack couldn't interpret the sound, he comprehended that the unicorn was requesting him to mount its back. Jack clambered onto the unicorn's back, and they both set off towards the beanstalk. Jack heard a howling and growling voice in the distance, and when he turned around, he saw the same terrifying Fenrir he remembered, with the ogre riding on it. However, due to its exceptional wings and greater speed, the unicorn easily outpaced the Fenrir. Upon reaching the beanstalk, Jack dismounted the unicorn, thanked it with a bow, and watched as it galloped away and vanished from sight. Then he jumped onto the beanstalk and swiftly began his descent. The beanstalk shook fiercely as Jack was nearing home. He saw the enraged ogre high above and ran to find an axe as soon as he reached the ground. Jack held the axe tightly as he began to chop down the beanstalk with fury. The ogre noticed the beanstalk was dying and decided not to risk it, attempting to climb back up instead. Nevertheless, Jack dealt a final mighty blow with the axe, and the beanstalk collapsed from top to bottom. The ogre, holding onto the beanstalk, fell with a devastating crash and lay lifeless on the ground after cracking his skull. Jack and his mother, along with their enchanted goose and magical harp, were no longer in poverty and lived happily ever after.